It's more than $1 million a year.
You can't go to the vacant.
I call to order this special study session of December 9th, 2024 at 6:42 PM. And I call, our regular business, we have one item on the agenda. It's the 2024 Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update, the public hearing follow-up. And I call on Ryan Windisch.
Deputy Mayor, do you need to call roll again? I don't know.
Oh. Well, let's call roll.
Deputy Mayor, you can just indicate that all council members
Okay,
are
all
present.
council members are present. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council.
Mr. Windisch, can you turn your mic on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council. Last week, you held a public hearing on the 2024 Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update. And this study session is a chance to ask me questions. I also have two consultants on the phone online, Stephanie from Burke and Claire from Parametrics, to respond to questions that you may have as well. We had 4 members of the public testify last week. One had to do with stream buffer questions regarding the critical areas regulations, and I can address that. And then we had 3 comments around the topic of the Ryan House. Some were more budget related from Mr. Randall Adams. Tina Burnett had some comments as well regarding working together on saving the Ryan House, and Nick Bierman also had comments in regards to the Ryan House as well. So I did want to address, I saw some head nods on the stream buffer question. Robin Honeysett from They Own Property on East Valley Highway had questions regarding how to correct errors on the map, and also just concerns with the rights of property owners if they have a property that would be maybe completely taken up by a 100-foot buffer. So I wanted to kind of run through a response to that. First of all, there's provisions in the code to actually look at your stream typing and present to or apply to the Department of Natural Resources for a different stream type, because the Department of Natural Resources does all the stream typing. We're relying on their map. So if there's an error, they have the ability to talk to the Department of Natural Resources directly. In terms of the 100-foot buffer and how can you get it reduced if there's issues with it, the code actually has kind of 2 steps to that. The first one is an administrative buffer reduction. You call it a type 2 decision. The property owner would apply to the city and it would be a director decision. The director can only provide for a reduction of down to 75 feet. If there's still an issue, still can't gain what they would consider reasonable use of the property, then the next level would be to come in and apply for a variance. The variance would go before our hearing examiner for a decision, includes a public hearing and public notice, and then that would be the route to take in that regard. And really the reason we have variances like that is the city doesn't want to be in a position of constitutional taking of somebody's property because it's rendered without a reasonable use. And so that's why you have a variance option. So a property owner can go through the variance option. So there's a stream reduction option, which is down to 75 feet, which is less arduous, I guess, than the variance. And then if there's really a need, they can go the variance process as well. In the outcome, you probably see some need for mitigation, maybe planting trees or other things that might be required in order to reduce the buffer by that degree. So if that answers the kind of the technical questions on the stream buffers. On the Ryan House, as we've talked through the process with council, we definitely have, there's definitely amended policies in the comprehensive plan. They are intended to provide the flexibility around historic preservation. The policy that specifically said improve the Ryan House is recommended to be removed from the comprehensive plan, but there are still policies around historic preservation, adaptive reuse, working with organizations to preserve properties. So there's a broad policy that still allows for council flexibility when it comes to historic properties, including the Ryan House.
Question, Councilmember Alpers?
I was just curious, on the setbacks that you mentioned, the stream setbacks, I was just curious, on the DNR, so one of the steps you mentioned was to reach out to the Department of Natural Resources. Is that something the city could support the property owner in if there's a mistake, or is that something that's the property owner is 100% on the hook to figure it out? Because that seems a little, like, if the city could support them in that, it would
Sure.
seem to
Yes.
me that would be ideal.
Yes, the city would be supportive. We help them make the right connections, find the right process for doing that. However, I do wanna caveat this. If there's a stream up there at all, it's likely to fall into it's going to fall into some kind of DNR stream typing, right? So if it's a seasonal non-fish bearing stream, so it doesn't run year round. If it's perennial, of course it runs year round. But it could be non-fish bearing, and then if it's fish bearing, it's gonna be typed as well. So I guess if there's a stream, it's completely in the wrong place, or it's not a stream at all. With that question, I'm seeing Claire Hoffman from Parametrics on the screen, so I'm wondering if Claire could respond to working with DNR on stream typing changes.
Yeah, I guess I just want to clarify one thing first. So if there's a stream that's mapped on a property, DNR does this fairly high level. It's just that's where a best guess based on mapping, and the property owner will be responsible for hiring a consultant or such somebody like me to come out onto the site and say there's a stream there or not. And if I was there and there's no stream at all, then we'd be able to say that, and will end up being a kind of a non-issue for that particular landowner. And so, but if it is a stream, say it's a type F, so a fish bearing stream, and the property owner says, no, that doesn't make sense to me, then that would be going to the next step of going up to working with Washington State Department of Fish, DNR, Department of Natural Resources.
So it sounds like the property owner has the option.
Okay, thank you, yeah, that sounds good, thank you for explaining.
Thank you, Claire.
Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, Ryan, I was wondering, is there any preliminary assessment of the two routes on the stream buffer stuff? Any preliminary assessment as to if somebody went the administrative route, how many properties potentially that might kind of cover versus that variance route? I'm just trying to assess if that administrative route would cover the majority of the cases we would be looking at, or if that's just a little too far down the road for us to tell.
Yeah, I really can't say. It's gonna be an individual circumstance with individual properties. If they can get a stream reduction, kind of the administrative route, and it takes 25 feet off the buffer, and they're able to do what they need to do, that's what they would do. I also wanna point out that the code also allows some relief for existing buildings, for example, that might be in the buffer. So there's some other allowances in there that they'll take into consideration existing infrastructure and property rights, of course. But yeah, we'd start with the lowest level of what we need to do and then work our way up from there.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Yes.
So Ryan, when you talk about Mr. Adams, a few of the notes that I took in regards to his statement, he said the city council is responsible for all costs made by the city in regard to the Ryan House. And then another note I took was that Mr. Adams said the city had the $2.2 million, and I think made some comments about that, and I don't know that we can address all of these. And then the other comment was that the city was found to be guilty of breaking the law. And so I think we should address that statement in here, because if we leave it unaddressed, people would maybe might wonder what that comment was about. Can you expand on any of those?
I would
By
defer
chance?
any comments to that regard to our city attorney. If she can respond, that'd be great. Thank you, Andrea.
Without going into too much detail, because I can recirculate the final judgment from the court, the judge ruled that the city's decision to demolish the Ryan House, the issuance of the demo permit, was not consistent with the comprehensive plan. And what state law says under the Growth Management Act is that all budgetary decisions have to be consistent with your comp plan. So the judge determined that the city had not been consistent, invalidated the demolition permit, and instructed the city to go back through the comprehensive plan update process, receive input from the public, and amend those provisions of the comprehensive plan that were inconsistent with demolition before moving forward.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing, okay.
Just since we're on the topic of just trying to understand some of the comments were made, is there anything in the comp plan about a new city hall that you're aware of in the current comp plan? That was
No,
something that-
the capital facilities plan goes through and analyzes kind of what our current situation is in terms of capacity at City Hall and kind of projects forward what, based on population and employment, what types of staffing we'd need and what kind of, additional space we may need, but there is no specific policy or mitigation that would say we're building a new City Hall.
Okay, so it's something that we can talk about, that doesn't necessarily mean we're making any decisions as we're running out of space, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I think we're good, Mr.
Deputy Mayor.
Windisch.
I'm sorry, if I could just add a little bit more clarification of Councilmember Alford. So as Mr. Windisch pointed out, the capital facilities plan sets forth how much space we should need in the next 20 years. And one thing the capital facilities plan was very clear on is that we are over capacity in this building today. So as you know, one of the things we've been working on is the Heritage Park project that does include council chambers, as you know, that are equal in size to this with the same number of seats. As far as staff positions over there, currently as designed, there's 4 offices and 2 cubicles, so a total of 6. It is not a city hall as designed today. It is a public facility for events downstairs and council meetings upstairs with a little bit of staff room. But there is not a city hall currently in the works by city staff.
It's the name.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Okay.
Yeah.
That's even dumber.
That's just gonna be for.
On the ordinance 2907-2024 comp plan, the amendments to housing. So on the second, we went over a lot of stuff on alternatives 1, 2, and 3, but we never did what we talked about on a couple study sessions was our hybrid and preferred alternatives. Can you explain that to me real quick again? So
Yeah.
some of the people, thank you.
So we, so as we went through with council, well, we went first through with the planning commission and then with council on a preferred recommendation. So the environmental impact statement took a look at 3 alternatives, the kind of no action alternative and then alternative 1 and alternative 2 that have various differing policy proposals, but alternatives 2 and 3, they all meet city and Growth Management Act requirements in terms of meeting all the affordable housing requirements, your projected population growth, your projected employment growth. And then the preferred alternative is kind of a hybrid, drawing from alternatives 2 and 3. And that was incorporated into everything that you were able to review. Because we talked about it, we made adjustments to policies in those study sessions, and that entire document was in front of you for the hearing on the 2nd. What I also want to add is that our consultants are right now working on a final environmental impact statement, and what that entails is going in and actually walking through the preferred alternative, kind of back through all the different elements of the EIS. And so you will receive that prior to the final adoption on January 6th.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, one more call. Any more comments, questions? I think we're good.
Awesome, thank you very much.
So I'm assuming we are not doing another city administrator report. Okay. For agenda setting, this is the end of the year, anything to talk about, committees for next year? Probably not, but we're bringing it up just in case. Excellent. So there is no executive session, and I adjourn this meeting at 6:58 p.m.